Hey, welcome back to Make Others Successful, a podcast where we share insights, stories, and strategies to help you build a better workplace. Matt and I are cozy here in our little living room setting today. We're going to talk all about process management. Well, more like the overwhelm with all the tools and finding your way with all the tools. And we're going to go through an illustration here. We got the TV set. For those of you watching on YouTube, you have a nice illustration here about kind of the different Microsoft tools. If you are listening to audio, I will tell you. So
go paint the picture.
Yeah. So the premise here is that you get tons of different tools with Microsoft 365. Some are more complex than others. There are natural ways that people kind of find themselves in using the tools. Some are more approachable than the others. And we're here to talk about kind of why that is, how you should think about it, and kind of give you some insights of how we view the suite of the tools and how we think you should find your way. Is that accurate?
Yeah.
Any notes?
No.
Okay.
I think that's pretty good. You didn't reference where it came from, so.
Yes, it came from my amazing process management video on YouTube.
Yeah, he made this cool diagram, and
I needed some way to illustrate how all of these tools kind of relate to each other. So yeah, the video is all about this complex process. We wanted to talk more in depth about it here in the podcast, but it is an ocean drop-off diagram. So if you've ever seen kind of like the side view of a sand kind of coming down, going into the ocean, and then suddenly it dropping off and then it getting way deeper. We have that on a TV here next to us. And along that drop off, along the beach and everything, are the different Microsoft tools and kind of where they land on complexity, ability, approachability, lots of different ways to think about it. But we're going to kind of talk through this concept, what we mean by it, and how you should think about it. So we're calling this like maybe the kiddie pool versus the deep end.
Shallow end versus the deep end.
And this is shallow. And none of this is meant to imply much more than this is our perspective on the tools. It is no implication about, oh my gosh, you're only playing in the kiddie pool. You should think less of people like that and more of the people who play in the deep end. It's just different.
It's a way to think. Really, it's about, if you're talking about the shallows or the lower end of the pool, there's a lot less risk. There's, you don't really need to know how to swim. You can always just stand up. There's not a lot of extra things to think about. If you're going to be, 400 yards offshore in the deep end, you better be ready to swim and better be able to, not be sunbaked and tired and, in a bad way. You need to be thinking about that a little bit more, right? When you're by the beach, you can always just get right out and you're no problem, right?
Yep.
That's the type of thing that we're trying to imply here.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's talk through some of the tools to kind of like illustrate it. So up here on the top left, then in the shallows, we have Outlook and OneDrive and Microsoft Forms and Planner and SharePoint in some respects and Teams. These are all tools that we've seen people use all the time where they say, oh, I think these tools can help me at my work, and let me try to stand something up and configure it and have it help me with my daily workflow. These are all things that are okay, and we've seen people get really far with just these tools.
Yep.
Down the slope a little bit, a little ways is Loop. Loop sort of bridges this gap a little bit, and we'll probably talk more about Loop later. I wish it bridged this gap a little bit more, but it starts to introduce a little bit of complexity around managing information and laying that out and structuring things for your work, and it integrates some of these tools into one spot. let's go deep. In the deep end is we have tools like Power Apps, Power Automate, Dataverse, Power BI.
Dynamics 365.
Well, I was going to say I don't have the Dynamics logo on here, but I would view it as deeper.
Yeah, it's somewhere between Loop and the other things.
That's where you think it would go.
Yeah. Like if you do
No. Here's my thought. I think Microsoft poses it as that, but it truly is deeper.
In my opinion, it really comes down to whether or not you have a consultant that's coming in and doing an implementation, and they're going to go. Make
If
it
you
exactly
don't have
what
to
you
be the
want.
one to set it up, it's really easy.
Well, or if you stick to the basics, if you just follow what their pattern is, you're good, right? The moment you want to go more, it gets super deep, super fast.
Yeah. I'm biased against it a tiny bit because I know they have a suite of like 80 some products, and it is very
All labeled Dynamics.
intimidating to get into. But you'll hear someone uses this tool, and they'll show you a case study of how it changed someone's operations. And that's not to say it's a bad tool, but it can be a little bit fuzzy, and so I don't like it for that aspect. But
Well, so let's talk about what we mean by this and what that looks like. So on that shallow end, the Outlook and SharePoint and Planner, and this would be Planner Basic primarily, Teams. These are things that are meant squarely, like almost exclusively for end users. They're meant for people to open up and do things themselves and make things happen themselves. It is not meant, they're not meant for, super custom, super advanced enterprise implementations.
Mm-hmm.
People try to do that, but quite frankly, the reason we list them there is that if you were to try to do something like that, that's actually one of the mistakes that people make is you're going to have a lot of problems because they're not meant for that. They're really, like I said, they're meant for end users. They're meant for power users to do these things.
Use it kind of out of the box, play within the confines. I had someone ask me recently, can I just like get to the code behind Microsoft Teams and customize it to work the way that I want?
No. That's no. On the other end, on the deep end, these are things that are at their core enterprise developer tools that have end user features and functionality. Like people call them low code, no code. That is very true. They have a low code nature to them, but at their core, they're an enterprise application development. That's what they are.
They have the
right?
tooling behind them. Yeah.
Yeah. That's what they're there for. That type of thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're built on that infrastructure. They're for that purpose. And so they're going to be a little bit more challenging for the average everyday business user to just go maintain and develop this thing or make that process be great with these tools.
Yeah.
So that's why we put them in these two categories. Again, that doesn't mean that, you can't take SharePoint and do a bunch of custom stuff. You 100% can. But if you were going to do that, I'd probably do it in Power Apps instead, right? Same thing with Planner, same thing with a lot of these other tools, right?
Can we sow some seeds here of when we're talking about these tools, what are we actually trying to accomplish with them? Like, what are some example scenarios?
Yeah. So why are we talking about this all? Why does this even matter, right?
Yeah.
So there's two scenarios that we often see. So actually, I'll talk about three. One is a Microsoft person or another person that you're aware of may talk about another cool tool within the stack and be exactly what you were saying. I see this great user use case saying they solved this problem with this tool, right? And those use cases are probably valid, but you don't necessarily know the amount of effort it took to create that and then therefore maintain that.
Or Microsoft partnership funding.
Yeah, that paid for some of those things, right? And so, one of the contexts that we want to bring this into is that just because you heard that you can do something with a particular tool doesn't mean that it's the right thing for you to do with the tool. So that's one thing. Mm-hmm. The other thing is we often see people who, for licensing, for skill sets, for lots of reasons, try to stay in the shallow end to their detriment because the value that you could get by solving the problem that they have, they should just work in the other end. It would be a lot better solution. It would be more scalable. It would be a better solution overall, right? We also see people who gravitate immediately to the other end for something that when they can't even figure out how to use Teams or how to use some of these other tools. And they really should figure those things out before they go mess in the deep end, right? Because quite frankly, all of these other tools integrate into those tools, right? Like this is an ecosystem and it's all kind of, they play together. And so now when you're in a Canvas app or an app and it wants to integrate with Teams, but you still won't have your team set up, you're going to struggle. And really you should figure out Teams. You should figure out those other things first. And then if you need to, bring in these other things. So we see it both ways. And this is all about trying to express that. We have so many people from the community who talk about, how can I use Planner to do this? Well, the answer might be, depending on what you're trying to do, Planner's not the right tool.
Right.
Like you're trying to automate something that does, let's say it's a process that does hundreds of times a month. Planner is not your solution.
Right.
Like that is 100% not what you should be using ever for that type of thing. Right. And they just don't understand that, hey, forget about that. Don't spend your time there. Spend your time down a little bit deeper in the waters.
Yeah. Yeah. And we're maybe commiserating a little bit with this, the fact that this is not easy to figure out. So this is sort of an ode to Mr. Business Leader, Mrs. Business Leader. You've heard these tools. Let's say you're trying to fix an onboarding process, or support intake is another common one. Something that is maybe painful with the current way that you're managing your work right now, and you've heard one of these other tools can do the job. Should I invest the money in doing this thing? Will I regret it? I don't feel confident. How should they be thinking about this? And this illustration is meant to start to help you understand some of the lay of the land as far as we see it.
Yeah. So let's talk about the process intake, the support intake tool.
Sure.
So, we've had that problem. We've solved that problem for customers. It's a combination for a lot of these people, right? So for one of our customers, as an example, that we use Azure DevOps. They use Azure DevOps to manage their tasks. The team that's doing the support, that's how they manage their tasks. And so they needed a way to have a form on the front end. So it's a Canvas app that pulls in, asks specific questions, and people can go fill out that data. And then it sends automations that go to various places, right? On the other end, we have people who are doing document approval management, which is pretty much all done in SharePoint, right? So I upload my documents, I review my documents, and then I kick off a process that goes, hey, give me some approval. And it's almost all in SharePoint, right? It's really dependent on what your skill sets are, how comfortable you are, and what the value is of that. You're gonna find that on the shallow end, it's easy to implement and get started. It's easy to make something simple happen, but you're not gonna have a ton of customization, right? You're not gonna be able to lock down permissions every way you want. Reporting is not gonna be what you necessarily as easy as you want it to be, right?
Yeah.
And if those things are valuable, like that support intake, that was for a team of 5-6 people, right? That's a fine solution. If you're trying to do that for a 400 person organization, that I would never, ever, 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 ever do it that way.
Yeah.
That would be a non-starter, right? I would do everything in Dataverse. I would do a Canvas app. I would do a model-driven app. Like it would be completely different than what we would do for a smaller team that's just trying to improve these things. So some of it is size, like scale. Some of it is skills, right? We talk to customers and they don't have IT at all, right? Well, I'm never going to recommend you move down this path over here to do these really complicated things without someone who is an IT or at least power user.
They're going to have to rely on somebody.
They're going to need to talk. Now, that's another piece of it. Hey, we don't have somebody like that, but I'm more than happy to work with a partner to go develop and manage and maintain these things. Great.
We have a client like that too.
We have clients like that too, right? It really comes down to that nuanced choices. But if you're a business leader listening to this and you're looking at the tools that you have, I would be asking my team, have we already tried Planner? Have we already tried Forms? Have we already tried SharePoint? Like, what are the problems with that?
Yeah.
Oh, the problem is it's not manageable. We want to make changes to it all the time, and we can't manage it well. Or, hey, we ran into the list limit in SharePoint. We've got too many in a list, right? Those are all signs that I go, yeah, you probably should be playing a little deeper, playing a little deeper into the waters.
Yeah, I'm reminded of, we have another client that uses a Microsoft form to log when they find bugs or they want features, things like that. And so I'm thinking about the process that happened when we went the Canvas app route for the other client. And so I'm trying to like come alongside someone who might be thinking, I don't know which way I should go. What we did was we said, can we use Forms for this thing? And we hit a roadblock pretty early on where we said, we want to dictate the user experience a little bit more and give them different paths that they could go down visually, and give icons, give some sort of symbolism to what they were doing. And that's not feasible with Forms. It doesn't work with Forms. And so we said, okay, I think the next best option would be to investigate building a Power App for that, where we can then lay out 3 very clear paths. Someone can click there, get clear instruction, fill out a form. So like there's aspects of Forms that would have worked perfectly fine, but we found a specific limitation that didn't facilitate the user experience that we wanted. I wish I could tell everyone the labyrinth of paths that they could hit those roadblocks at. It's very difficult to do.
It is, yeah.
And so what we try to do is zoom out a little bit and focus less on features and more on how critical is this to the business? Mm-hmm. What ability do you have to support it? What financial ability do you have to put into this thing? If it's not a money concern and you're like, I just want it to work well, you can do those things. It's not wrong. What would you say to somebody that is in that position where they probably don't need the Ferrari, they don't need the deep end, but they're like, ooh, give it all to me. Should they be doing those things?
Oh yeah, it's really hard. They can get themselves in really big trouble. If I'm talking to a business owner, okay, you're going to be responsible for the consequences, right?
Yeah.
If I'm talking to a manager of a department, I'm going to be hard trying to get them to go somewhere else. Mm-hmm. The reality is they're buying into something that the business is going to have to maintain over the long haul. And when there's a new manager, they're going to be left with this Ferrari that has high maintenance and needs tuning all the time. When all they really need is a daily driver, something that just gets the job done and does the work, right? Mm-hmm. But it also depends on really what it is. When you say they don't really need it, it's like if for the example that we both, one of the ones that we've both talking about, there's hundreds of those requests going on a month, right? I could that particular one kind of sits in the middle between if here. I could, if somebody said, hey, if that customer had said, I really want the Ferrari, I would go, yeah, like I can see it, because you're going to keep, that's never going to end. You're going to keep getting these. Yeah. And it's just always it's just a matter of how much, mm-hmm. right? You're still going to need to maintain it, right? But if somebody's like, I really want the Ferrari for something that happens once a month, I'm like, come on, right? Like you're going to waste everybody's time and money and energy. There's no point in it.
Yeah.
And I'm using the time, but I mean, there's lots things, something that happens once a month, but has like a lot of steps and everything. There's a lot of, like you were saying, there's a lot of labyrinth of decision matrix that's going on here. Mm-hmm. But there's a lot of different ways you can go, but generally speaking, the number of times, the value it is to your business, the effort it requires, those are all metrics that I would use to kind of decide what it is that what way you want to go.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think my example to most people will be like, you're crazy. It's never a situation where we have more money than sense, right?
Yeah.
It's more, we have the duct tape hand-me-down systems. I can't get my leadership to invest in these things. Yeah. And I think that might be worth it, but I don't know. How do you figure that out? How do you I don't even know
mean,
what question I want to ask because
it's pretty clear. I mean, the reality is if you still got duct tape systems and you're kind of patching together some SharePoint stuff, et cetera, but it's starting to bleed over and have problems, the reality is your options are pretty minimal, right? You can use another third-party system that you're gonna have to pay another licensing cost for to do something very similar that you can do at the lower end or at the other end of the pool, or you have to pay for a custom development, like total custom app, or you have to do this. Like or live with what you have, right?
Yeah.
Like businesses make this choice all the time to just live with what they have. That is a separate conversation. But if you're going to make the change, those are your real options, right? Like there's not much else. Once you have kind of exhausted the limits of what those tools have, you have to do something different. You have to make a big change. And the question becomes, does it make sense to have it within this ecosystem, within the Microsoft 365 stack, already integrated with some of these other tools, or do you get a third-party system, or do you build one? And there's justification for all of that. I'll be really honest and clear. Like there's truly, people could go, we love Monday.com and that's what I've used before. And so that's the reason. And they're like, we're going to pay and we're going to get this other license of Monday.com. Mm-hmm. Or we have customers that this is critical to our business. This is the lifeblood of our business. This spreadsheet that I have is with macros and all this stuff. This is what makes or break our business, right? Great. Maybe you do need a dedicated third party or a custom developed application for this, mm-hmm. right? Because you need it to be super intuitive and way more than what you can do with a low code, no code solution. That's okay too. But those are your choices, and quite frankly, most people presented those choices. This is where you're going to go. The cost of maintenance
biased.
And managing. No, I'm not.
He's drinking the Kool-Aid, everybody.
I'm not biased. If you're given those options, that's what you're going to probably. That's what you should choose most of the time.
I can't trust you anymore. I'm just kidding. No, it's an interesting line of thinking because we were actually just joking around before this about imposter syndrome and thinking about a leadership, like a leader trying to decide which way to go. And at some level, everything that we're doing is made up, right? We're doing what we think we should do based on experience and knowledge and wisdom. But at the end of it, it is all making a calculated risk, trying to decide what to do, attempting it, seeing how it goes, and then adjusting from there, and then repeating and repeating. Yeah. I think this illustration works well because it feels scary to go deep. And I think when we start talking about, like, one of the first things you were talking about with those tools is the enterprise, tooling and things like that. And it can start to feel like overkill. And we talk about licensing costs. I'll never get licensing costs past my IT or stuff like that. What would you say to someone who is maybe timid about trying
again,
it?
it's all about, I could take other products from lots of other vendors and put them up here on the same thing, and there would be a lot of them that would end up on this deep end, right? They're big things. Salesforce, for example, mm-hmm. Workday. When you think about even Monday.com, probably sits somewhere in between, quite frankly, the two ends. These things are not simple, basic things. And so, again, it's a choice about what you want to do. I mean, do you want another license cost with another partner? Yes or no, right? Like mm-hmm. it is. I would question whether or not their organization is committed to actually making a change, because the reality is change costs money and it costs time, costs effort. And if you can't get someone to sign off on it, it must not be valuable to the organization. Yeah.
So I think business goals is an important part of it, trying to align some of that change to business goals. If there's no basis for it, and you're just fooling around trying different stuff, like it's not worth. Stay in the shallow ends.
Yep.
Prove something out and try to have a minimum viable thing before you
Yep.
say this is worth doing. So that's one clear indicator. What are other maybe clearish indicators that someone, this might not be serving them well?
It really comes down to how frustrated they are.
Okay.
I mean,
How do you measure frustration?
that's a very individual thing. People are very frustrated with the tools, often are frustrated with the tools that they have. Some of the frustration comes from specific features, right? Which that's a Microsoft problem. Like, hey, I really want this feature. I really want the ability to have hyperlinks in my descriptions in my Microsoft Forms documents. Right?
Sure.
That's a super small granular thing, but it can be
It might make a huge difference.
In what you're doing, right? Frustration in those types of things, I would say, I don't think it's probably worth it, right? Maybe you need to pick a different tool, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't mean a Microsoft tool. I mean, pick a different tool, like go use something else for this purpose, right? When you're frustrated because, this thing that I'm trying to create is a multi-stage process and I'm trying to band-aid 17 different things together and I'm having problems because somebody left that was the one that was managing it and when they left, we lost access to the stuff. And then I tried to transfer ownership to somebody else. And tried to get help from IT to manage. When you're talking about those types of frustrations, I go, yeah, you need to be playing down here, right?
Yeah. My Excel file is locked.
Yes, right? Like when you have those types of problems, you have an architecture problem. You have an infrastructure problem, right? What you're trying to do is going well beyond what can be done with the tools that you're choosing. And choosing a third-party tool usually isn't going to make it much better, right? Because either it will be way more complicated to implement than what you have already done. It will be additional licensing cost that you may or may not really need. Like it's not like switching to you have a different problem. Your problem is you're not treating this thing like it's an enterprise, more like it's an enterprise thing or a real process problem. And you're treating it like it's my problem or my little team's problem. Right. So that would be one of the things that I would look at, right? Like if it's like, I hate the fact that I don't get a notification I don't choose a different tool maybe that does the notifications, whatever, right? I wouldn't immediately go here probably. I might augment it a little bit with here, like you can do some notifications with Power Automate maybe. When you're like frustrated with the more architecture, the more big picture things, I go, yeah, you're probably beyond what you can do with those tools.
Considering pulling back the curtain a little bit here, is there anything we do that should be treated more like a process that we don't treat like a process and we have duct tape together?
That's a great question. We duct tape a lot of stuff together. That's such a loaded question. We are pretty good at using some of these tools because of who we are and what we're doing. We've even had like Livy from the marketing team and other people who would usually in most organizations not start trying to automate some things using these tools. So I don't know that there's any one thing that I'm like, oh yeah, this is the end all be all. I think we do a pretty good job of assessing it, not all the time, but on a regular basis. When I think about our digest, we were just working on that a little bit to try to make that a little bit better, right? We take a very iterative approach. And so I don't know that there's anything like glaring.
You got to work on this. You're supposed to fold the promotion into the reference to the digest, where you say everyone gets a weekly update to all the Microsoft updates that are coming out in plain speak and not dumb Microsoft language. And it will tell you if you should care about it or not. Yep. And you get all of that delivered in our community called The Workplace. Go to jointheworkplace.com to learn more. That's what you were supposed to say.
I'm not a marketing guy. Sorry. But like seriously though, like we're pretty good at that. When it starts to become a pain for someone, we try to automate things, generally speaking.
Yeah.
And so far we haven't had to dive too deep into the deep end. You know, you don't like CRM, you don't like Dynamics CRM. Our current one is we're on the edge of needing more. I'm like, hey, maybe we should be doing that. Like there's little things here and there, but generally speaking, we're pretty good at it.
I think I fall into the traps that we're articulating with Dynamics, because it's not as simple as I don't like it. I think it's scary.
Yeah.
Not like like it's scary, right? And it's also, it's unknown, but it's also, we are accustomed to the tools that we use right now. And I know that there are some features that the tools we use right now do that Dynamics CRM doesn't do. And so it's exactly what you're talking about, where it's like, am I beholden to?
I mean, the reality is, for us on that one in particular, I think about it and I go, well, I have the feeling we haven't dove into it in a lot of detail because it's not been painful enough yet.
You're right.
When we have to go to the next level, which is significantly more money, we'll probably have to revisit it again and say, hey, is this worth it? Is it valuable, right? When we started using it, it was like, it's a no-brainer. Figure out how to make that work in the way that you want it to work, or use this other tool that works how you want it to work, but costs a little bit of money. I would choose that all day long, right? It's the same thing with Calendly, right? Bookings doesn't do everything we want it to do, right? And I have to choose this. Now, if you told me I had to get a bookings account for everybody in the company forever, for all time, I might go, hey, I don't know.
Calendly, you mean?
Yeah, I said bookings, yeah.
If we had to pay,
Calendly. If we had to pay, right now we only pay for Calendly for a few people,
right?
But if somebody said, we got to get that for everybody as we grow, right? Eventually I'm going to go, I don't know, really? Let's talk about that some more, right? Is there an automation? Is there some things we can use in our stack already that will make it better?
Yeah.
And that's the approach we take, and I think we've been pretty successful at it. But I also think we're a little unique because of who we are.
I was going to say, I think we're haunted is maybe a bad word, but because we know the tech, we can apply ourselves pretty quickly.
You or I spend an evening messing around with something that's annoying us, and we fix it.
Yeah. I wish I could bottle that up and give to somebody.
Yeah.
If you can have someone who can know their way around tech on your team and give them some leash to play a little bit,
a lot can happen.
A lot of that pain can go away.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Well, I think we've covered most of what we want to talk about.
I agree.
I haven't talked about Loop. You guys, Loop. I should stay off my.
He's going to go off his.
I wish Loop was 25% further, and it would make so much pain go away for all this stuff. I think.
I tend to agree.
When I use a tool like Notion, I used Notion, got involved with all the Loop stuff, really heavily became a Loop user, started to get frustrated with some of I wanted a little bit more, and I started dipping my toe back into the Notion stuff for my personal side of things. And now I just had that moment of, oh gosh, I wish I could realize some more of this ethos, the features and the depth that Notion has, and apply it in Loop. I could help so many people.
Yep.
I so badly wish I could do it.
There's always that 20%, and there's a lot of it, honestly. You know, when you think about MS Forms, they came out with a new refresh for MS Forms, and I wish it would have added some features that they didn't. They just did a redo of Planner, and I wish they would have added a few more features. A lot of it is branding, marketing, rejuxtaposition things instead of. We have some really good stuff for you, new features, man, that will really help you solve these problems. But that's a different topic. That's back on general Microsoft stuff. So
yeah, I think that's upcoming. Our take on the state of Microsoft. Build, is it Build or Ignite coming?
Build is coming up.
Build is coming up. We're going to be watching that, sharing our thoughts. But for now, this is the lay of the land. This is the tools. This is how we think about them. Maybe we'll put a link to this graphic in the show notes for those of you watching
and your blog,
or listening.
Your blog and your video.
My amazing blog, yeah. See,
this is good. This is good. If we went a little bit deeper on this one.
Yeah, so. I agree. Yeah, no, this was good. I'm glad we have this kind of analogy to come back to be able to talk about, because it is not linear. It is not, there are so many facets to all these tools. And if it feels complex, it's because it is.
It is.
It is not a straightforward answer.
Yep.
No matter what you hear or read or see online and any marketing materials.
Yep.
So
That is true.
we're here for you to commiserate, if nothing else, but hopefully you enjoyed listening to this episode and it was helpful. But until next time, Matt, thanks for your time.
Yeah.
And we'll talk to you all again soon.
Bye, everybody.